Hello children, welcome to our channel Classroom for Class 10th. We are in our Social Studies Chapter 10th Globalization. Already I have discussed some point and the remaining points I am going to discuss today. Children, please watch the video till last so that you can understand the lesson very well. Hello children, welcome to our channel Classroom for Class 10th. Today we are going to explain the remaining points of our chapter 10 globalization. So we have already explained some points. What is globalization? Explain production across countries, interlinking production across countries, foreign trade and integration of market, MNC and globalization. Today I am going to explain the remaining points from chapter 10th, that is factors that have enabled globalization like technology, liberalization of foreign trade and foreign investment policy, institutions of global governance, World Trade Organization WTO, impact of globalization in India. So children, when we read this paragraph about technology, we will find that there is a rapid improvement in technology during the last 50 years. This is the major factor for globalization. There is a development in information and communication technology. So telecommunication facilities like telegraph, telephone, mobile phone and fax, these things have improved a lot during the last 50 years. And there is a certain boom of computers and internet. All these things have a great contribution in the field of globalization. So after reading this topic about technology, we will find that there is a rapid improvement in technology, that is improvement in transport in last 50 years. And there is also a development in information and communication technology like telecommunication facilities, telegraph, telephone, mobile phone and fax. Nowadays we can send things even through our mobile, which is connected to the internet banking. Now children, we have another topic, liberalization of foreign trade and foreign investment. This is also another factor for globalization. The liberalization of foreign trade and foreign investment policy of different government in the world has made globalization more and more faster compared to the past centuries. Now there is a point, impose tax or reduce tax on foreign goods, that is to regulate the foreign trade in our country. So how? Now let us take the example of Chinese toys in India. Suppose the Indian government puts a tax on import of toys, and because of the tax, buyers will have to pay a higher price on import goods. The Chinese toys will no longer be cheap in the Indian market and imports from China will automatically reduce. So this is the one way to regulate foreign trade in a country, so that the indigenous market should develop and prosper. Now I have made another point. During 1950s and 1960s, trade allowed imports of only essential items such as machinery, fertilizers and petroleum. Why this was done? Tax on imports is an example of trade barrier. If the government puts tax, then it will control the import from the foreign countries. It is called barrier because some restrictions have been set up. Government can use trade barriers to increase or decrease foreign trade and to decide what kind of goods and how much of each should come into our country. So again, when we take this point that during 1950s and 60s, India allowed a certain goods only to import to India because the Indian government after independence had put barriers to foreign trade and foreign investment. This was considered necessary to protect the producers within the country from foreign competitions. Industries were just coming up in the 1950s and 60s, and competition from imports at that stage would not have allowed these industries to survive. So this step was taken by the government to allow the indigenous industries to grow. I have made one more point from this topic, children. During 1991, barriers on foreign trade and foreign investment were removed to a large extent. Why this was removed? Now it was the high time to allow the indigenous market to grow, to come into the competition, to improve the quality of their produce, so that the Indian product should compete in the international market. This decision was supported by powerful international organizations. I have made another point from this topic, children. This step is called liberalization. Removal of heavy tax on the foreign goods and allowing the foreign goods to enter into our own country is called liberalization. Globalization is all about political decisions, economic aspects and technological changes. So globalization is not only economic factor, it is technological changes also, and as well as political decision also by the government of different countries. Now students, in this chapter, in page number 138, we have some inbox questions. What do you understand by liberalization of foreign trade? I think you have understood. Liberalization means the removal of heavy taxes on the import of goods coming from the international market or coming from the foreign countries. That is called liberalization of foreign trade. Now one more topic is given in the inbox. Tax on imports is one type of trade barrier. The government could also place a limit on the number of goods that can be imported. This is known as quotas. Can you explain, using the example of Chinese toys, how quotas can be used as trade barrier? Do you think this should be used? Already I have told you that Chinese toys were coming to India at a very cheap rate, and so it was very easily available in the Indian market. This resulted in the extinction of Indian toys. Children, government can use the tax, increase the tax. In this way, it can impose barrier on the foreign trade. Government can also decide what goods should be imported and what not. So this is another way to control imports into the country and allow the indigenous market to grow. But I don't think this is a healthy way. If you won't allow the foreign goods to come into our country, it won't let the Indian producers to compete in the international market. Consumers don't have much options in the market. Give a chance for the Indian producers to compete the international market and make Indian goods brand in the international market. Now students, we have another topic, institutions of global governance. There is one such institution that is called GEG, Global Environmental Governance. It is the sum of organizations. Policy instruments, financing mechanism, rules, procedures and norms that regulate the process of global government protection. I think you have understood, children. This is one such type of global institutions. The another is WTO, World Trade Organization. What is World Trade Organization? WTO, World Trade Organization's main aim is to liberalize international trade. All the countries should trade with each other, and there should not be much barrier on any import or export. It started at the initiative of developed countries like America, Germany, England, China. These countries, they told WTO that all these developed countries and developing countries should start international trade. It establishes rules regulating international trade, sees that the rules are obeyed. What is the function of WTO, World Trade Organization? To establish rules regulating international trade so that any developed countries should not take extra benefit from anything. And it sees whether the rules are obeyed and maintained by all the developing countries and developed countries together. There are 150 countries of world who are the members of WTO, and WTO is now overpowered unfairly by the developed countries. This is a very sad thing. That now children, we have another topic, impact of globalization in India. What is the impact of globalization in India? Whether it is beneficial or whether it is non-beneficial for the Indian traders. Let us discuss point to point. Now if we discuss the impact of globalization in India, we will find that globalization has some positive impact on Indian trade. Now it is an advantage to the consumers. The consumers have greater choice for choosing their product in the market. So this is one benefit. Another important thing is children, MNC, multinational companies, have increased their investment in India, and it is very beneficial for them. Now jobs have been created. Local companies supply raw materials and they have also prospered due to the investment of MNC in the Indian trade. Indian companies have improved due to market competition. Now the Indian producers, they are also trying to improve their product so that they can compete the foreign goods. Globalization has enabled some Indian companies to emerge as multinationals themselves, like Tata Motors. One more important thing is providing service. Now these MNCs, they are providing service to IT sector people, and they are getting job they are getting job in data entry, accounting, administration and engineering. Earlier, all these technical people, they used to go to foreign countries, and in this way our country was suffering from exodus and brain drain. Nowadays these educated people and skilled people, they are getting job in India. Now let us see the topic, small producers, compete or perish. Perish means they vanish, whether they survive in the market or they will perish or vanish from the market. So this is a big question. Let us discuss this point also. As I have told you children, globalization and liberalization, they have some better impact on Indian market also, especially consumers. They are much more benefited by this globalization and liberalization policy, because consumers have a greater choice in the market. They can fairly choose their product which they find it good compared to the other. Globalization has increased the employment. Now the MNCs are investing in our country. So the children, those who are skilled and those who are graduate, they are getting a job easily in the market. Another thing is the Indian producers who are supplying raw materials to these MNCs, they have also improved. Their financial position have also improved for liberalization and globalization. But on the other hand, there is also a negative effect for small producers. They have to face a large competition in the market, and when they are coming into the competition, they are slowly receding. They are not able to survive. So there is a case study. Let us read and understand how it has a negative impact on the small producers. Here is a case study, children. Ravi did not expect that he would have to face a crisis in such a short period of his life as an industrialist. Ravi took a loan from the bank to start his own company producing capacitors in 1992 in Hosur, an industrial town in Tamil Nadu. Capacitors are used in many electronic home appliances including the lights, television, etc. Within 3 years, he was able to expand production and had 20 workers under them. His struggle to run his company started when the government removed restrictions on imports of capacitors as per its agreement at WTO in 2001. His main clients, the television companies, used to buy different components including the capacitors in bulk for the manufacture of television sets. However, competition from the MNC brand forced the Indian television companies to move into assembling activities of MNCs. Even when some of them bought capacitors, they would prefer to import as the price of the imported items was half the price charged by people like Ravi. Ravi now produces less than half the capacitors that he produced in the year 2000 and has only 7 workers working for him. Many Ravi's friends in the same business in Hyderabad and Chennai have closed their units. Thus, we can see that small producers like Ravi, who started his business before the liberalization, like in 1991, his business was doing good and he gave employment to a large number of people. But due to government policy in 2001, his sale of capacitors decreased and so the production, and thus he had to fire some of his employees from his company. Thus it is clear that on one hand, if the big businessmen are improving, at the same time the small businessmen and producers like Ravi are affected by liberalization policy of the government. Now children, we have another topic, the struggle for fair globalization. Let us explain this topic also point by point. Children, when we read the topic, we will come to know that people with education, skill and wealth, they have only benefited from globalization. So there should be fair globalization, where the uneducated and unskilled people will go. What is their position in their own country? So this is a point to think and discuss. Another thing is, children, the government can ensure that the labor law are properly implemented and workers should get their rights, because the multinational companies, they are very wealthy, they have a lot of wealth, they start their own rules, they follow their own rules and regulations. In this way, the workers in their company, they are affected. So there should be better rules that should be followed by the MNCs. The government should support small producers till they become strong to compete. This is very important for the government. The government should see whether the indigenous market is in the position to compete the foreign goods, so that the producers like Ravi should not perish from the market. So these are the things how the government should protect the indigenous producers. Another important point, children, the government should align with other developing countries to fight against the domination of developed countries in the WTO, World Trade Organization. Already we have seen that the World Trade Organization is dominated by the developed countries. So our country, he should come together with the developing countries so that the domination of the developed countries should be removed from WTO. And people can play an important role in the struggle for fair globalization. They should protest. If any MNCs, they are following their own rules, they are not following the rules set by our own government, so the people should protest and it should boycott the product of that particular MNCs. So in this way we can see that there should be a fair globalization and fair liberalization policy for a country that should be followed by the government. Now children, not only this, there are some other issues also. What are the other issues? Let us see. Now children, globalization doesn't have only economic effect or political effect. It has some other issues also, like nationalism. The impact of globalization is the dilution of the feeling of nationalism. So when people are coming together and they are doing their business together, they are slowly they lose the feeling of nationalism, and they just want to promote their product, and they are only concerned about their own position, own product, own economic activities. So the feeling of nationalism is slowly diluted. Another thing is the cultural homogenization or increase of cultural diversity. So in this way they are developing a homogenic culture, that is a mixed culture and a diverse culture. They are no more stick to their own culture and tradition. This is the another impact and result of globalization. The another thing is the spread of certain culture and neglect of local and small cultures. That is a very sad situation. So the people are more and more attracted towards the outside culture, mainly the Western culture, and the local culture, tradition, and the indigenous culture and tradition they are neglecting, and so they are vanishing day by day. Some languages had become language of international communication, like English. Nowadays it has become very compulsory for the people to know English, to read, understand, write English very well. And it is not compulsory that whether they know their national language or local language or their mother tongue, it doesn't matter. Let us conclude this chapter, children. When we conclude, we will find out that rapid integration of countries, there is a rapid integration, means mixing of countries. All the countries in the world, they have become one, like one country or one village. This has economic, political and cultural dimensions. Another thing is liberalization has opened the economic to the force of globalization. So due to the economic factor, the globalization is very important, so that the people can do trade. Another thing is, children, the benefit of globalization have been unevenly distributed. Some people have benefited, they have become millionaire, and some have perished from the market. The rich countries have an undue influence over the rest of the world. International organizations like WTO, WB, World Bank, and the IMF, International Monetary Fund, they only represent the interest of the developed countries. So this is also the negative effect of globalization. What is the negative effect? The rich countries have taken the benefit and they have overpowered the international organizations like WTO, what is the full form of WTO? World Trade Organization, and WB, World Bank, and IMF, International Monetary Fund. These all institutions are overpowered by the developed countries, and some people have become very rich, and some businessmen, small producers, they have perished from the market. So I hope you have understood the whole lesson about globalization, children, and what is liberalization. I think you have understood the whole lesson very well. Please like, subscribe and share my channel. See you in my next video, children. Till then, goodbye.